The importance of self-care has been front and center over the last few years. For millions, the pandemic acted as a catalyst, forcing many Americans to slow down and take note of what's really important. That means not just caring for family or friends, but asking, what do I need? The answer for some may be a greater focus on self-care, but this isn't so easily solved by a day of pampering or time alone. These superficial services may help with temporary relaxation or stress relief, but do little to resolve deeper issues. One change may be to set greater boundaries with relationships. Nedra Glover Tawaab is no stranger to this. She's a licensed therapist, social worker, and relationship expert who specializes in helping adults define clearer boundaries in their relationships. But why is this so hard for so many people?
Often we're unclear what the boundary is. We're unclear that we have the ability to set them. So I think about this discovery of boundaries as what is the problem that you would most like to fix in the relationship? And what are the possible solutions? The solution is often the boundary. And learning how to not just recognize the boundary, but communicate that need to another person can be very healthy and helpful for your relationships.
Tawab says that relationships peak and wane as people change. Sometimes a friendship or family relationship now feels draining and unhealthy, but it's kept up for years because it's easier to avoid confrontation.
We have to know that hard conversations are necessary conversations. If they weren't easy, if they weren't hard, we would be able to do it without having reservations and guilt. We have to be able to talk ourselves through the process of doing uncomfortable things and really not identifying ourselves as the bad guy or the person with the problem. There are so many times where we get really hard on ourselves because we have to place a boundary. We have to have a conversation with someone. And it is okay to feel uncomfortable about it, but it certainly doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Tawab gives one example where a client was on the receiving end of this conversation.
One that I can think of that is more recent is someone dealing with a person not wanting as much contact as they wanted. And how do you communicate that to a person? Sometimes it's you not answering your phone as much. It may be you saying to them, I don't have the availability during these times. Having those conversations are really tough. And I think they're also really helpful for you. It helps you with your resentment towards the person. It reduces your agitation. It changes your stress level just to talk to the person about the thing you're constantly thinking about in the relationship.
And sometimes feelings can bubble up in different ways if these discussions never happen. One common emotion is showing passive-aggressive behavior.
Even when a person senses, hey, is there something wrong? We may say, oh, no, I'm fine. And they're saying that because they're noticing something. They're noticing a shift in your mood. They notice that your behavior is different. So instead of claiming to be okay, it is very brave of you to say, I am upset about this because, or this thing bothered me. In our relationships, we can certainly reduce the passive aggressive behaviors with honesty.
Tawab says that leading with what you're feeling and why you're feeling this way can be helpful. It might be difficult, but focus on staying calm and level-headed. Also, before meeting up with the person, set time and place boundaries. Meet in a public place, like a park or cafe, and come up with a reason why you need to leave.
There are times where, we need to speak up and say, hey, it's time for me to go to bed. I have things to do tomorrow. I'm going to leave.
Speaking up and setting boundaries is never easy, but it's necessary. Tawab points out that sometimes, even after having open conversations and setting boundaries, it may be time to let a certain friendship, family relationship, or romantic relationship go. Here are some potential signs.
You continuously talk about the same problem with no resolution. The situation in the relationship has become unsafe. You notice that the situation is starting to impact your mental health. the situation is impacting your ability to function in your life or in other relationships. A lot of the signs that we may see may be internal. We may start to have stomach issues or headaches or panic when we need to see a person. Those can all be indicators that something really serious is going on and we need to respond to it.
If this response is necessary, keep in mind that it may not always be a good idea to confront the person face to face. Tawaab notes that each person's situation can look a little different.
In some relationships, it can be not safe to share, right? There are some situations where if you share, you are the victim of further abuse. You may be talked about in some derogatory way. There may be some level of abuse. So there needs to be clarity within yourself. Is this a person I can even speak to? Because if the relationship is really egregious, it might be something where you need to say something and not have a conversation.
Relationships are a part of life, and it's natural for them to come and go. It's how people learn to approach and communicate in relationships that can make all the difference. To find out more about this topic, how to set boundaries, and our guest, Nedra Glover Tawaab, head to viewpointsradio.org. Also check out her book, Drama Free, A Guide to Managing Unhealthy Family Relationships, now available online and in select bookstores. To find mental health care near you, we recommend using the directory compiled by Psychology Today. Head to the magazine's website, psychology-today.com, and click Find a Therapist to search for nearby providers. This story was written by executive producer Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. This segment is brought to you by Capital One. With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A., member FDIC. Coming up on Viewpoints.
Am I eating this way to lose weight, to attract other people, whatever? Or am I eating this way for my own emotional well-being? And I think that's really important.
The intimate relationship between food and our mental health. Then,
I'm a full-time student, a part-time teaching assistant, and also a part-time nanny for a family.
Inside the largest higher education strike in U.S. history, I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.